Hello, everyone. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. If you need the restroom, they're over to your right over there, near where Tom is waving. Also in the back, there's water if you need a sip, help yourself, and a couple little chocolates if you need a little, I don't know, happiness. My name is Elsa Rowe. I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at Scarborough Public Library, which means that I organize the adult programming. If you have something you'd like to see here, please let me know and I'll do my very best to make it happen. We have a lot of interesting events coming up. Please pick up the flyer of coming events on your way out and consider it your personal invitation. There's also an online tip jar with QR codes for both library funding and for Russell. Please consider tipping the cost of what a ticket would be. It's a free show. Lucky us. Tonight I'm joined by my colleagues Catherine Morrison and Tom Corbett, whose help has already been invaluable. I'm extremely lucky to have them in my corner when events grow to this size unexpectedly. You may also notice that tonight's performance is being filled by Scarborough's local TV magic maker, John Cranton. The video will be available on local cable access channels, the library's YouTube channel, and Russ's own website, russellkaback.com, sometime in the next few weeks. An important part of our library program is the inclusion of a brief land acknowledgement. I'll read that now and then introduce Russ. The Scarborough Public Library acknowledges that it is located in the traditional homeland, past and present, of tribes in the Wabanaki Confederacy. We recognize and honor the current tribes who comprise the Confederacy, the Penobscot, the Passamaquoddy, the Maliseets, and the Micmac, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We acknowledge the Owaskoag people who once lived in what is now Scarborough. We respect the traditional values of these tribes and support their efforts for land and water protection and restoration. In offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty, history, and experiences. We are so pleased to have Russell Kaback here. I've been a fan of Russ's since first hearing him perform in 1994. I have his album on CD and on my phone, so he's made the switch through technologies. His music is currently available on all streaming services, and you should really check it out. Knowing Russ, I suspect he was born performing. I've often said that I could listen to him tell a story about a trip to the grocery store, and he would somehow make it interesting. In 2016, Russ received the Joel and Linda Abramson Award, and in 2018, the Maine Arts Commission Project Grant in support of bringing this musical story based on his grandfather's experience during the Holocaust into schools in Maine. This work has been performed in venues in Maine and Massachusetts since 2014 at the Port Fringe Festival in Portland and in his grandfather's hometown in Poland in 1918. In 2022, he began collaboration with master storyteller Antonio Rocha to create the one-man musical storytelling version of this show, titled 25044. The performance debuted in Turner, Maine in March 2023, and this is his very first library performance. Just recently, 25044 was picked up by Portland Ovations. If you're interested in having Russ perform at a school, you can check out the Portland Ovations website or talk with Russ after the show or via email. Please join me in giving Russell Kaback the heartiest of welcome.
Thank you, Elsa. Okay, I'm going to check out this sound here. It seems like it's a little, maybe too hot. I don't know. Does it feel a little hot? Yeah, hang on. All right. Elsa and I are old college buddies. We went to Clark University. That's how we know each other. So we've been old family friends. So thank you, Elsa, for inviting me here. And thank you all. Is that a little better? It's maybe? Okay, okay, I'm going to go easy on myself if we need to do some technical corrections as we go. What was I saying? Thank you all. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. This is amazing. I've been performing this show for almost 2 years now, as it stands. I debuted it in March of 2023 in Turner, Maine, and I've been performing it in schools mostly since then. I've been a teacher since 2004 in K-12 settings. It's just wonderful to have you all here. Elsa mentioned I'm going to be performing in schools with through Portland Ovations this coming winter, February through May of next year. As you know, this story is about my grandfather's life during the Holocaust. So the subject matter obviously is difficult. In terms of for example, the Portland Ovations presentation, it's advised for ages 10 and up. So it's not terribly graphic, my descriptions, but obviously the material is of that nature. So please take care of yourself as needed, and hopefully we'll have some time afterwards for some questions and comments. And let's see if this is working. Okay. My name is Russell Kaback. The title of this story is 25044, and it's based on the life of my grandfather, Shiek Mager. And it begins in Benjamin, a small city in the southwest of Poland. In the region of Silesia, the coal mining district of Zagłębia, at the bend in the river Przemysza, at the end of the grand avenue of Kollontai, stands the symbol of Benjamin, the castle of Benjamin, built in 1348 by King Kazimierz the Great, friend of the Jewish people. Shiek's father, Yosef, fought in World War I, winning independence for the new modern nation of Poland. Look, there he is in 1918, returning to Benjamin to reunite with his beloved Zelda. This uniform I wore, this long and bloody war, what did I do it for? For you, for you, for you, for you. And there's Zelda, who worked as a domestic servant, awaiting the return of her beloved Yosef. To you, my heart, I swore, each day I wiped the floor, to see your face once more. It's you, I did it all for you. And they began their life together, to have a dream and see it through. I do it all for you. And they soon had 4 boys, one after the other. The oldest was Motek. He was tough like his father, in charge of his 3 younger brothers. The second son was named Moniak. He was gentle, looked just like his mom, especially when he smiled. The peacemaker of the family. The third brother was Abo, the rebel. He didn't listen as much to what the old folks said. And the fourth son, the youngest, my grandfather, the hero of our story, they named Yehoshua, like the name Joshua. In Polish, they called him Shia. To those of us who knew him well, he was Shiek. Shiek was clever, loyal, and always active. Oh, Shiek, you're splashing me. It's too much water. I can't breathe. It was a hot day in late August, 1939. Shiek was about to start high school. The whole town of Benjamin was out by the bend in the river. The old folks were cooling their toes off in it, while the little babies were being dipped into it. The rich sat beneath parasols, picnicking beside it, while the poor wrung their clothes out in it. The wise ones made blessings of gratitude over it. And the fools did backflips off the bridge into it. Hey, Sheik, I bet you can't jump from up here. That's Abo, Sheik's next older brother, the one I told you about, the rebel. The two of them were like the two tablets of the 10 Commandments. You'd never find one without the other. Oh yeah, Abo, watch me. Cannonball! Splash you in the water, dunk you under, so you could hold their breath the longest. We had a ball of rags and we threw it over the crowd. We played all day. Abo, time to go home. Not yet, Sheik. Abo, come on. Mom wants us home for supper. We'll go soon. Abo, now. Fine. The two of us walked home through the archway into the courtyard behind our apartment building. Our hair was still wet. I looked up to the back window and suddenly I saw my mother and father with such a serious expression on their faces. An expression I had never seen before. Sheik, Abo, supper! All 6 of us sat around eating Mom's delicious soup and bread. When our father was done, he put down his spoon. Boys, we need to go stay at your grandfather's house in Pinchif for a few days. Without asking any questions, we got into packing mode. Beans and barley we grabbed from the shelves. Bread and butter we wrapped in towels. We pumped water from the well into jugs. We grabbed candles, blankets, clothes. The next morning, people were moving in every direction in the street. Our father had somehow arranged for us to have a wagon. We loaded everything onto it, and we helped our mother, and she sat on top like a queen. Each of the 4 boys took a corner. Our father in the front, between the 2 poles. And we began the journey, 2 days walking to the village of Pinchif, where Grandpa lived. People escaping Benjamin in every direction they could. Silence. Each of us in our own thoughts. My father in the front. Those scoundrels, they think they can mess with the Polish army. Didn't they learn their lesson last time? My oldest brother, Motek. Oh, this is bad. My brothers have no idea. My mom up top. Daddy, we're coming. We'll be together soon. Moniek spoke. Mom, you okay up there? Yes, son, thank you, I'm fine. You always take such good care of me. Abo. Oh, this is big. I think it's gonna be a war. Me? Sheik? The youngest? I was just looking forward to being with Grandpa. Whatever it was that was happening, he would know what to do. I always loved his bedtime stories. Stories of the old times. And the way he made us say our blessings every morning when we woke up. Boys, the way you make your bed each day is the way you lay your head each day. So make it with great care, for the secret is hidden there. And this body that we're given, this house for the soul to live in, if one door closes when it should be open, or if one should open when it should be closed. And he made us wear every day a special shirt with fringes on the edges called tzitzit. He said it was there to remind us, because we would forget, that the world was created not by us, and it was left a little unfinished at the edges. And it was our job to try to make the world complete by doing good things, things we didn't always want to do, but we should. And this garment richly woven, like the weaving together of all of creation. The open-ended fringe is the unfinished works of humanity here on earth. If you wear this, no bad things can happen to you. This will protect you for life. A motorcycle and sidecar raced up from behind and sped off into the distance. Boys, pull faster, I can't do this on my own. Help your mother down, push the wagon over. People were hit nearby. Airplanes. Under their wings. Black crosses. This is what it meant to be in trouble. Everyone go back to where you came from. A voice from the loudspeaker. We left the wagon in the road. We never made it to Grandpa's. As we returned to Benjamin, I saw from a distance a huge cloud of gray smoke rising into the sky. A checkpoint on the edge of town. Name, date of birth, Josef Magner. 18 September, 1881. Curfew, 7 p.m. A huge, long procession of cars, trucks, and motorcycles circled all through the main streets of Benjamin. You could still see the dust on their goggles. They took the commander straight to City Hall, and they hung huge red banners. There were fires burning in our street. It seemed to me like all hell had broken loose. The Polish army was in disarray. They just took off their uniforms and gave up. Right away, there were new rules. You could only walk down the right side of the street. Did you hear? They arrested all of the prominent members of the Jewish community, all of the important and influential people. They're locked in the basement of City Hall. It was unbelievable. Well, people believed what they wanted to believe. But some people had radios. Did you hear? France and England have declared war on Germany. People either hoped for the best or they feared the worst. After 24 hours locked in the basement of City Hall, those prominent members of the Jewish community with no food or water, they demanded that one of them step forward to be the head of their Jewish council. Nobody wanted to do it. Who would? To work for the Gestapo? The Gestapo was in charge. They did whatever they wanted. You couldn't say anything against them, or you would be beaten, arrested, and fined. Did you hear? He got picked up in the street and sent to a camp. A camp. New rule. All radios had to be turned over to the authorities. After 48 hours locked in the basement, finally, of all people, Marin stepped forward. Marin. The first thing they did was they beat him to the ground so hard he could barely get up. Now he works for them, tells us what to do, all to save his own skin. This was their method. They turned us against one another, made us accomplices in their own crimes against us. And it worked. Marin and the head of the Gestapo posted a notice. To all the Jews, you are required to register with the Jewish Council. If not, you will be denied ration cards and prosecuted. What choice did we have? Now they had all of our names on a list. Germany and Russia sliced up Poland. Did you hear? They tried to run away to the Russian zone, but they got pushed off the high bridge at Slavkov, and they drowned in the river. Marin was ordered to hold a meeting of those prominent members of the Jewish community. When none of them showed up, he made a speech. I'm going to die because of you. You have one last chance. Show up 12 noon tomorrow. Otherwise, don't come to me for help. New rule. Jews are no longer allowed to own businesses. My parents' small dairy store was taken over by a German manager. The next day, at 12 noon, when those members of the community showed up, Marin addressed the crowd. We're required to turn over 5 kilograms of gold. That's $250,000 in today's money. We have no choice but to save ourselves from this fire burning around us. Be thankful we still have our gold.
with which to save our lives. He took the ring off his finger, he put it on the table, and he walked out. Did you hear? In Pinchif, where Grandpa lives, they rounded up all the Jews in the synagogue, and they set it on fire. My mother went into shock. We never made it to Grandpa's. It didn't seem possible. Grandpa's dead? But I soon saw it was possible. School never started for us that year. Kids, we were out in the street. La, 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 la. I heard a commotion. I knew my parents wouldn't want me to, but I had to go look. And I saw, with my own eyes, the great synagogue of Benjamin, the one with the beautiful paintings on the ceiling of the 12 tribes of Israel, on fire. People screaming, glass breaking, jumping out of windows. Men in gray uniforms, red armbands with gray caps with a skull. The SS shooting people as they ran. The priest in the church next door tried to give them shelter if he could. An old man came from the crowd, looked me in the eye. You have to get out of here now. Grandpa, it seemed to me like it was my grandfather speaking to me through this old man. I ran home with tears in my eyes to tell my parents what I saw. That very night, as I was sleeping, my brother Abba woke me up to tell me he was running away with his friends to the Russian zone. Wake up, Shiek, don't turn on the light. The midnight train is leaving Benjamin, and me and my gang are taking flight. We'll reach the east before the morning light. Though we don't believe in vengeance, I ain't going down without a fight. They say we're not the only ones. We're joining with the partisans. We're running with our loaded guns into the night. Tell father that I had to go. Tell mother that I love her so. When I'll be back, I don't know. We're flying with the coming snow. Abba was willing to lay down his life to protect our family. He was ready to die for us. Even if it meant running away from home and breaking our mother's heart. Like David up against the giants, we stand together forever in defiance. We are the young and the brave. Yeah! Don't ever say that we walk in the final road. Remember Moses set the people free, surrounded on all sides like Judah Maccabee. To everyone with the courage to take a stand, we extend a welcoming hand. Abba joined the Russian army. We got letters from him from time to time. Months passed. March 1940. It was considered a privilege that my mother and father were allowed to work in that small dairy store that they, once upon a time, owned. The German manager unlocked the door in the morning, and he emptied the register at the end of the day. My father was once considered the toughest guy in the neighborhood, but he was powerless. My mother never came out of the shock of her father and then her son running away, crying all the time. My older two brothers, They were lucky too. They each had blue papers, work permits, that gave them special privileges, protected status as productive Jews. My oldest brother, Motek, was a woodworker, a cabinet maker. And my second brother, Moniak, had a job in a hardware store as a locksmith. But me, I was too young. There was nothing for me to do. Seeing my parents so sad, we had little food, little money. What could I do to help them? We were hungry. There was a baker down the street. He trusted me. In the morning, he gave me bagels on credit, and I sold them in the market. This was illegal for a Jew. I could get picked up and taken away. But this was the chance I had to take. I stood on the market with my basket. Bagel, 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 bagel. 1 penny each and 3 for 2. Poppy seed, sesame, spread a little cream cheese. Can you keep a secret? They're the best bagels in Benjamin. And I made some money. But if I saw the police, I ran through the crowd, around the stalls, around the corner, over the table, through the wall. I came home, and I put the money on the table for my mother and father. And I never got caught. And this is how we earned a little more bread and butter, gave us a little hope. Time passed like this. November 1940. A group of German soldiers raises glasses in a tavern, singing songs of their motherland. Our flag is a new flag, flying high above the open country. They got rowdier and rowdier. Our flag is a mighty flag, never seen before in all our history. By the end of the night, they could barely stand up. Their hearty songs turned to plotting of action. The young rookie among them had to be initiated into the group by taking the lifeblood of the enemy with his own hands. They staggered out into the streets of Benjamin. The next morning I woke up like I always did, and I went to the baker's to get my bagels. It was early. I was alone in the street. Suddenly I saw an old man leaning up against the storefront. What's he doing there? I saw his hat and his beard. I recognize him. It's the old man Lazar from the neighborhood. What? His eyes were closed. What's he doing? Sleep? He's dead. A bullet hole and a line of blood. Members of the community came to take his body away, to give him a proper burial. The Germans the night before had had their fun with him. An old man came from the crowd, looked me in the eye. You have to get out of here now. It's time, any way you can. Grandpa, what? After that, my mother and father didn't let me out in the streets. It was too dangerous. Months passed. April 1941, I was home with my mother and father. My father answered the door. It was Marin, the head of the Jewish Council. Mr. Mager, Mrs. Mager, I come with an opportunity. Blue papers, a work permit for one member of your household. This means security, safety. A 10-week assignment at a nearby camp. A camp? Let me see that. And if we don't go, please, Mr. Mager, if you don't go, they will take you by force. He left. Zelda, this is my duty. I have to go. You stay with the boys. I'll be back in 10 weeks. I don't know, something told me this was my chance to escape. I made the first big decision of my life. Dad, I'm gonna go instead of you. You stay home with Mom. I'll work hard. This will keep me safe. There's nothing for me here. It's too risky. I'll do whatever they tell me to do. They've never seen a worker like me. I can't believe it. They agreed to my plan. The next morning, I packed up a little backpack. I hugged and I kissed my family goodbye. My mother, tears streaming down her face, as I hopped on the streetcar to the neighboring town of Sosnowiec, to the registration place, with Marin's paper in my hand. We stood there all day registering every single person, and they put us upstairs in a building to sleep for the night before they shipped us out the next day. As I was walking down the hall to the little room, I looked out the window. I saw down on the ground floor by a fence a crowd of people, mothers who had come to say one last goodbye. I saw my mom there, but there was no time. I slept in the room, and in the morning, we shipped out. I walked back down the hall. I looked out the window again. It was raining now. There was still a small crowd. My mom was still there. Mom! She had stayed all night. I got this. It's okay. I'll be back in 10 weeks. I promise. Go home. It's okay. I don't know if she heard me. They put us on a bus. Not a long drive. And we arrived through barbed wire and a gate with a sign that read, Anhalt. In the camp, name, date of birth, Yehoshua Mager, 11 December 1924. They separated us into sections, each group in front of a barrack, all Jewish prisoners. The commander stepped down the line. Welcome to Anhalt. Work hard, and you will go home in 10 weeks. Now let me show you how we do things around here. He hit one of the prisoners at the front of the line so hard he could barely get up off the ground. And when he did, I saw he had in his hand a club. I am your capo. From now on, you answer to me. This capo, he was a prisoner just like the rest of us, but he got special privileges for keeping us in line any way he saw fit. We slept 4 crammed in a bunk. The capo had his own little room at the front of the barrack. That first morning, he woke us up before dawn and put us to work. Get up, you low-down, dirty bunch of swine. Get out here and be counted in a line. And if you even hesitate, you're gonna feel a beating of mine. From this point on, you are property of Hitler, an enemy, a criminal and a prisoner. And all you need to know is that you're here to follow every order. We were working, cleaning the streets, emptying the garbage, doing menial tasks. It was almost like they really didn't have anything for us to do. If somebody saw a scrap of food, he jumped on it, and everybody jumped on him. The capo came in, give me that! And then the guards came in and broke it all up. Every night I cried, remembering my promise to my mother. Mom, I got this. I'll be back in 10 weeks, don't worry. And in the morning, I tried to remember my grandfather's blessing. The way you make your bed each day, this body that we're given, and this garment richly worn. But I didn't have my tzitzit, the fringes. But I took my knife and I cut the edge of my shirt on the corners, so small that nobody could see. And this helped to remind me. Back to work! Now and again, they let us write letters to home. This gave us hope. Conditions here are bearable. The work is not so terrible. The shoes I've got are wearable. I'll keep them full and moving. The packages go to the kitchen in the end, and for one meal on the weekend, we still pretend we are human. But mother, don't you cry, I've only gone nearby. I'll be back soon and I will see your smiling faces. I'm sure they'll let me free in 2 weeks, maybe 3, and this will only be on a temporary basis. That's why I keep on holding out for your love, low eyes on the skies above now, mother. This I say to you, I promise I will soldier on, standing strong, no one there to lean my shoulder on. Mother, I keep holding on. Spring turned to summer, turned to autumn, turned to winter. Marin had misled us about the 10 weeks. Boom, 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 everybody up, get this place clean, everything has to be perfect, it's him, he's coming. Every inch, every floor, every ceiling, every wall, every uniform, every toilet, everything had to pass inspection. It's him, he's coming. They worked us all day, all morning, until everything was perfect, and then they lined us up on the plaza for roll call. We stood there for hours in the freezing cold. People were fainting. It's him, he's coming. Suddenly, all the big bosses, the ones who usually had their fun with us, they got stiff and silent. It's him. He's here. Nobody dared to look, but I saw, out of the corner of my eye, a black, shiny car rolled up. A man stepped out, black, shiny boots, black uniform, black cap with a skull, black, round glasses. This was Himmler, the head of the SS, the architect of the entire camp system, second in command only to Adolf Hitler. He stepped down the line. All my life, I've been rejected, disregarded, not respected, to protect me from hard challenges. My father thought it best. My teachers dismissed me. Army men would not enlist me. The church deemed me unworthy, and girls were not impressed. So I studied agriculture, and we weed out what does not belong, and we only keep the strong in my SS. Oh, the night, what a night when we staged the coup. What a wonderful night we nearly overthrew. Nobody knew back then what we'd be able to do. To build a perfect, precisely scientific machine, the likes of which the world has never seen, to engineer the superior human being. And when they see our flag and it's flying so high upon majestic cities that defy the sky, whose name will they glorify? They'll say, it's him, it's Himmler, it's me. Now I decide. You step forward. I've never been so frightened in all of my life. He was looking for some good workers, And that's what I was. He took 100 of us and he shipped us out, leaving Anhalt. After almost a year, it felt like I was leaving my chance to go home. We arrived March 1942 at Markstadt, another work camp. The capo showed us the job. Shoveling the dirt, filling the trolley, rolling the trolley, dumping the dirt, rolling back the trolley, shoveling the dirt, day after day, week after week in the winter cold. We were filling a steep ravine at the edge of the camp. They wanted to level the ground, to make a new road, to expand the camp, to bring in more and more prisoners, shoveling the dirt, day after day. Suddenly I saw, lined up against the edge of the ravine, a row of soldiers in brown trench coats. What's going on with those soldiers? Those are prisoners of war. They must be Russian. Those brown trench coats must be prisoners of war. What are they doing lined up against the edge of the ravine? One by one, with the butt of a rifle in the back, they were pushed down into the steep ravine that we were filling with dirt. They tried to climb out, but it was too steep. Keep dumping the dirt. We were ordered. We had to keep dumping the dirt on them. They were scrambling, the dirt filling in on top of them. You could see their breath in the winter sky. And little by little, everything went quiet. Grandpa, they made me a murderer. Was that my brother Abo that I just buried alive in the Russian trench coat? I knew then they had no intention of letting us go home. But I had to keep my promise to my mom. I got this. I'll be back. So one day when they asked us, when we were lined up, who here is a carpenter? I stepped forward. I didn't really know what I was doing, but you remember my oldest brother, Motek. He's a woodworker, a cabinet maker. I used to go to his shop almost every day after school. I paid attention so I could fake my way. But if they found out I really didn't know what I was doing, that could be the end of me. But this was the chance I had to take. The capo showed us the job. Pounding in huge corner posts, building new barracks to bring in more and more prisoners. I was a good worker. They soon put me in charge of a little crew, and they moved me to a better section of the camp for special workers. There was an elder gentleman in the barrack there. He didn't go to work like the rest of us. He stayed in the barrack. He heated up the hot water for us special workers to wash ourselves at the end of the day. He cleaned the toilets. And in the morning, he carried the big urn, the silver urn of so-called coffee. It was just brown water, you know. He carried it to the kitchen, struggling with this boiling hot urn. Here, let me help you, I said. This might give me access to the kitchen, or maybe I can make a deal with somebody to get a little extra piece of food for myself. Where I was working in the new section of the camp, they had all of the confiscated belongings of the new prisoners. I was able to get sometimes a pair of shoes, or a belt, or a shirt. Don't ask how I did it. You don't need to know. I was able to do it. And I brought that to the kitchen, a pair of shoes, and I traded it for an extra piece of bread. But you couldn't just walk around with a piece of bread. What did I do? That silver urn of coffee, underneath it had a space. I drilled 2 holes and I fastened a wire across. And if I ever got a piece of bread, I tucked it under there so nobody could see. And I brought it back from time to time like that, and I shared it with the old man in the barrack. Thank you, young man. My name is Salo Fisher. Look at me now, cleaning toilets. Would you believe I once was a wealthy, respected man? I owned a huge corner building shaped like an L. We had a lively tavern on the ground floor and 100 apartments above. And I took care of every one of those apartments. When they came for my family, I traded that building for this privileged position, cleaning toilets. I was able time to time to get a piece of bread like that. One time I was walking with the urn. You! Show me that coffee. You steal bread? Capo. You give him the punishment. 25 lashes on his bare back. Getting injured in the camp could mean the end. It most likely did. If anyone went to the infirmary, they never came back. This capo took me in front of everyone. Take off your shirt. He raised up his whip. 25 lashes on my bare back. This other capo stopped him. These two capos could kill each other. You don't touch Sheikh Mager. If you do, you'll be sorry. And you, I knew your father from Benjamin. Don't you ever get caught again. Put your shirt on. Grandpa. You were right. The tzitzit, it helped me. Aha, you see, my boy, I told you. This will protect you for life. Not long after that, I came back from work one day, and I learned that the old man, Salo, had died. 2 years at Markstadt. March 1944. The Russian army is advancing from the east. Himmler gives the order, move all prisoners away from the front. Hide all camp documents. They pushed us out of Markstadt, on foot, walking all day through the winter cold, and we arrived at the end of that day at Flossen, at Fünfteichen. Not a work camp, a concentration camp. In the camp. Name, date of birth, Yehoshua Mager, 11 December 1924. From now on, your name is 25044. Say it. 25044. They dressed each of us in a striped uniform. You couldn't tell one from the other. They shaved a stripe down the middle of our hair in case we tried to escape. And on my uniform was the number 25044 and a yellow triangle. The triangles were the classification system of the prisoners in the camps. Those who had been in the system the longest were at the top of the pecking order. Each day they lined us up for work. First ones here, see the red triangles. Leftists, communists, anyone who dared to raise their voice up to resist. The first move of any authoritarian is to lock up any political opposition. Next up they brought the green triangles. Anyone with any record, mostly petty criminals. The so-called work shy, we're all here to supply free labor in the camp, where every day you fight to survive, and every night you lay awake and cry. And at the bottom of the pecking order was me, the yellow triangle, the Jew. Sheikh Mager. Sheikh, it's me, Itzik Londoner from Benjamin. Itzik Londoner. I don't know how he recognized me. I could barely recognize him, but it really was my old friend Itzik from the neighborhood. What news from Benjamin? Sheikh, it's terrible. Marin gave the order. All the Jews of Benjamin had to live in a ghetto on the outside of town. 23 people living in a barn. My parents, your brothers. Last August 1st, 1943, early in the morning, everybody out. They pushed us, we couldn't look back, onto a train. And we arrived, not a far drive, at Auschwitz. We stood on the ramp Dr. Mengele, the chief physician of the SS, sat on the platform, waving his white glove one way or the other. Other prisoners approached young mothers to abandon the babies in their arms in order to save themselves, because anyone too young, too old, unable, or unwilling to work was waved away with his glove and never seen again. I saw my parents and your parents go. No, I don't believe you. Sheik, I'm telling you it's true. No, my parents, no, I don't believe you. Let's give Sheik a little break here. This is Russell speaking. My great-grandparents, Zelda Zaltzman and Josef Mager, were crowded into a room, the door locked behind them. From square holes built into the ceiling was dropped pellets of Zyklon B, poison cyanide gas. As the gas rose from the floor, people tried to climb onto one another to get to more air. To have a dream and see it through, I do it all for you. Okay, Russ, I can take it from here. I could see in Itzik's eyes that what he was telling me was true, but I refused to believe it. Mom, I'll be back in 10 weeks. I got this. 1 year at Fünfteichen. January 1945. Boom! You could hear the Russian army was right there. We'll be rescued any moment. Cheers went up in the barrack. Himmler gave the order, don't let one person fall into enemy hands. Their testimony will destroy us. But I started imagining walking through the archway into the courtyard behind our building. Everybody out! They lined us up for roll call. Some of the boys, they were so sure if they just held on, the army was right there, they would be rescued. But no, they took the German shepherds and they sniffed every one of them who was hiding in the barrack out. They dragged them in front of us on their knees. This is what will happen to you if you dare try to escape. And they made us witness their execution by machine gun. I nearly fainted. Now march! Ice and cold coming through the broken holes in my shoes. Itzik and me huddled together under one blanket. We walked through days and weeks until we arrived February 1945 at Gross Rosen. Chimneys roaring day and night, piles of bodies everywhere. So crowded, they put us in a basement where the prisoners had dug the floor, a pit to fit more people in. This capo, in this basement, every day he got one piece of bread for all of the prisoners under his command. And after he got each one of us a piece of bread, I can't even believe I can tell you this, he took the handle from his pickaxe. He chose the weakest looking from among us, and with a single blow, this person was gone. Why? To get one more piece of bread for himself for the day. This capo ordered Itzik and me to drag the corpses to the top of the pile, not the bottom of the pile, the top of the pile. It was one half-alive corpse dragging another. We knew we were next. We just followed orders. You could hear the British and the American planes flying over all the time. Himmler gives the order, don't let one person live to tell the tale of what they've seen here. He pushed us out. March 1945, walking through fields and farms, the planes flying over all the time. They walked us during the night to hide us from the Allied forces above. And in the day, they put us in a barn to sleep, and we walked like this for days and weeks until we arrived April 1945 at Flossenburg, an old camp wedged between two mountains. This camp was built for 1,500 people. Now there were 15,000. They were desperately trying to hold on to the war, building secret bomber planes deep in the caves in the mountains. Bulldozers pushing corpses down into the valleys in between. So crowded, they put us underneath the bunks like you see sardines pressed together in a can, and we stayed there for a week with nothing to do. Until finally, Himmler pushed all 15,000 of us out in 3 separate commandos on trains to Dachau for extermination. We're rattling down the tracks. Da, 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 da. The Allied planes are flying over, trying to stop the locomotives. Ah! Itzik starts screaming. A bullet had come through the roof, hit the top of his foot, a tiny hole, but on the bottom of his foot was blown to pieces. There was nothing anyone could do for him. He was screaming until suddenly the train stopped. Everybody out. Anyone who couldn't walk was put up against the wall, Itzik included. They ordered us to empty the rations of bread off of the train onto a truck. We had to walk now because the Allies had blown up a bridge, and they put us the food on a truck to go alongside us as we walked to Dachau. We were unloading the food, the bread. Of course, some people, they tried to steal a piece. Well, what would you do? I took a piece of bread, I put it down my pants, and I had a little cuff in the bottom where I hid it. You steal bread? Up against the wall. I was in a line. They were checking everybody down. Grandpa, there's no way out. This is my last mistake. Next. They're checking everyone. Up against the wall. You steal bread? Tell Mom I love her. There's no way out. Next. I don't have my tzitzit to help me. Next. Shiik. The tzitzit. It's bubamaisis. What? Bubamaisis? Next. It's bubamaisis. Just stories. What? Next. Stories for me to tell to you. What's important is that you remember. What? That doesn't help me. Next. I was next in line. I don't know, a bird lifted off the ground. The guard must have looked away for a split second. I walked past, and they didn't check me. Up against the wall. They kept pulling people, but I got past. And every single one of those up against the wall was finished off with a single bullet to the head. And that's how my friend Itzik Londoner died. This piece of bread in my cuff gave me a little strength to go on walking. April 1945, in the middle of the night, it's raining. The water is coming in and out of my broken shoes. We passed a small bridge, and suddenly I felt, do you smell that? The smell of baking bread. There was a bakery factory on the side of the road. It was so tempting. Some of the boys couldn't resist. They ran to it. Of course, they were shot trying to escape. But not me. I kept walking. I had to keep my promise to my mother. That morning, as the sun came up, they put us like they usually did in a barn to sleep. Except this day, 10 a.m. Everybody out! They lined us up in front of the barn. I remember there was a farmhouse and a fence with a gate leading out to a road and some other barns over here. Suddenly a tank rolled by. And another one. The guards, they ran into the farmhouse. We couldn't think straight. We stumbled out through the gate onto the road. And up rolled another tank. On it, a single white star. The United States of America. We were liberated right there and then. The joy was indescribable. But joy mixed with pain. Our brothers had just been killed hours earlier. The hatch opened up. Out popped the soldier. He said something. I couldn't understand English. Some of the other boys, they pointed to the farmhouse. The Americans, they dragged the guards out. We're innocent. We didn't do anything. Innocent? They didn't do anything. We wanted to tear them apart. But the Americans wouldn't let us. They told us to keep walking back. They were advancing. And we wandered like wild animals until we came to their campfire. And we sat with the American army. And they gave us their canned meat, and we ate it like crazy. You know what happened? Our bodies couldn't handle it. We got so sick. Would you believe some of us died right there and then after being liberated? I myself was so sick, I spent 2 weeks in a hospital bed. Skin and bones. 4 years in those camps. 20 years old. My voice was so weak. There's no way I could have told you this story like I'm telling you today through my grandson, Russell. They put us in a displaced persons camp in the German city of Weiden. Turns out I had an American cousin by the name of Greenwald. He was a captain in the U.S. Army. He found me and some of our cousins. He put us to work crossing borders with counterfeit papers, hunting down Nazis. We spoke the language, we knew the territory, and we knew who was a Nazi and who wasn't. Greenwald let me borrow one day a convertible sports car. Imagine that. I had a few hours off. I had to keep my promise to my mom. I stopped by Benjamin. I parked the car at the castle. I walked through the archway into the courtyard behind our building. I still see your face in the rain as they drove me to the edge of insane. I fought through all of my pain to stand here like I told you. I know you came to say your goodbyes with teardrops falling from your eyes, and every day the sun would rise. I reached out my hand to hold you, holding on for your love, low eyes on the skies above now, mother. This I say to you, I promise I will soldier on, standing strong, no one there to lean my shoulder on. Mother, I'll keep. You're still here, you son of a. I thought they got rid of all of you. A neighbor from the balcony upstairs. You came back for your things, there's nothing left. We took it all. Oh, no, you didn't. We buried it, and you'll never find it. Back in Weiden, an older woman named Sabka invited me for Friday night supper. My husband is away, and I need some help cleaning the fish. Won't you join us? I came, I joined, and sitting across from me at dinner was a beautiful young woman. My name is Elsa. I was born in Katowice. They murdered my 2 older brothers in cold blood. My other brother, Fritz, was sent to a camp. When they came for me, my father traded our building so that they would take him instead. It was a beautiful corner building shaped like an L with a lively tavern on the ground floor. A tavern with 100 apartments above? Well, yes, how did you know? I knew your father in the camp. He helped me. Well, what happened to him? He died there in Markstadt. They said it was from natural causes, but I know he died from a broken heart. Elsa and I talked. We dated. We danced. We fell in love. And her brother Fritz took me aside. You're getting married. She's having a baby. Life begins again. Life begins again. How can I bring a child into this world? Knowing what I know now about life. People will destroy you if they choose, and there's nothing anyone can do. How can I provide for what you need? I have no money, no education, and no home. No family to ask for their advice. What can I teach you about life? Can I tell you things about the past? No, I'll have to lie to you each day and pretend I don't know what I know. My sorry story no one wants to hear. I'm worthless, yes, they want me dead to never live, and you as well. We are unwanted on this earth. They're working right now for our doom, and they will get it in the end. I should have died there on the road to save me from this misery. He said it was there to remind us, because we would forget that the world was created not by us, and it was left a little unfinished at the edges. And it was our job to try to make the world complete by doing good things, things we didn't always want to do, but we should. The way you make your bed each day, and this body that we're given, and this garment richly woven. How can I bring a child into this world? How can I not? Thank you for listening. Thank you very much, you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Well, that is my story. Please have a seat. Yeah. Open to, I know that's a lot. We open the floor for any comments, questions.
Well, that was a beautiful job. I was very moved by it.
Thank
And
you
I
so
wonder,
much.
have you performed it in theaters? And have you performed it at synagogues?
I did. I performed it at my family synagogue in Albany, New York, this Yom HaShoah, around May 5th this year. I think that was my first proper synagogue performance. I performed it at the JCA, at the Jewish Community Alliance in Portland, a couple days after that, also for Yom HaShoah this year on May 7th. Mostly in schools, theaters proper. I mean, closest thing to a theater would be like a school auditorium at this point, you know? But yeah.
Have you run across any Holocaust deniers?
I don't know that I have in particular. No.
Okay.
Although, you know, I've been in some school settings where, you know, teachers have sort of mentioned to me sort of the demographics of their classroom, and sometimes I sort of got the hint that maybe there are some, I don't know about Holocaust deniers, but perhaps people who are, you know, less, you know, favorably.
And I really want to know what subject you taught.
Music.
Oh,
Yeah, I kind of fought my way into becoming a music teacher. I don't have a music degree, but I do have a master. I did get a master's in education, and I started working as a music teacher in Philadelphia in 2004.
okay.
2005.
Lovely.
Yeah, but I've done other things, and I was substitute teaching this morning in South Portland, just 7th grade.
Have you performed in Falmouth schools?
I haven't, but
Yeah.
They're on my list of sort of connections. Yeah, so with the Portland Ovations presentation this year, it's going to be a matter of reaching out and talking to people in those schools. So if anyone knows anyone in any school in the area, look at the website Portland Ovations. You can link to talk to them and me. You can be in touch with me, and
Yeah, it would be good if you had a leaflet, a flyer.
yeah, it would be. I'm gonna rely on you to do that work at this moment, to remember the information that you need that would be on that leaflet. Yeah. Great, yeah. Thank you for that suggestion, and thanks Elsa for doing that, yeah.
I've seen other one-person shows, and I wonder, as an artist, I think it just must be tremendously challenging to play all of the characters. And I wondered if you could talk about that for you.
Well, I worked with Antonio Rocha. I don't know, do you know Antonio? I know who, yeah. Antonio Rocha, who's a brilliant storyteller who is a friend of a neighbor's that I met some years back. He performs around. And when I met him, he said, I'm a storyteller. I also do coaching people with storytelling. So I said, okay. So I hired Antonio to collaborate with me. And we spent a summer basically in 2022. And I had the story kind of as an arc, of basically what you saw, like all of those events. I had my songs kind of woven in here and there. Please feel free to take care of yourselves as needed. And he really showed me how to, like a lot of what you just saw, all of those little tricks and twists, I credit to Antonio. Almost all of them, all of those little theatrical things, like, let's give Shiak a break, he was like, you step forward as yourself for a moment, things like that. I mean, maybe there was one or two, there's probably some things that I've kind of, put in, but he kind of showed me how to, little ways to kind of do that. So, and he actually saw me at the May show, and he gave me a couple of extra tips too. So I was doing a lot of turning 180 degrees with different characters, talking back and forth, and he was like, no. You can just go like this and people will. So, I mean, I don't know how it looks from your perspective, but doing different characters, I mean, it's a lot to... The other thing he told me was I was kind of writing it out and word for word. He's like, obviously it's important to have some kind of script or if there's certain words you want to say, but he was like, don't memorize it by words, memorize it by pictures. See the story, and I'm not saying I've mastered that technique, but see the story coming at you. He kind of is like, you're kind of, it's in your holster and you're seeing it and you're, kind of going through it as it's coming at you visually. So all of those little transitions from character to scene to this and, and then narrating like I'm talking to you, and then I'm in the scene, I'm in the character. Maybe I shouldn't face 90 degrees, but so things like talking to the audience when you're narrating. I mean, I'm still working on getting the different voices down, but I'm trying.
Yeah, I think you did a great job of all of that. Just using the way that you used your body to bring the story alive was very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah,
and seeing you see it, you could see you do that.
Yeah, and each performance is a little, tonight, just I was like, oh, okay, I'm feeling it in a different way. I sort of got, I think for the first time when I was singing the holding on song to the mother at the beginning, the first time, I was I felt myself being more optimistic. I was like, oh yeah, I should convey hope in this moment so that you guys kind of feel oh, it's gonna be all right. As opposed to so having those little revelations as I'm performing it, so now I think next time I perform that song, I'll be have that sort of optimistic facial expression, because that's what Antonio told me. It's all in the eyes.
I think it's super interesting for people to maybe hear about how you collected the stories from your grandfather.
How did I?
Yeah.
So I went in 2009. He passed away in 2013. But in 2009, I went with him on the March of the Living, which is an annual Holocaust remembrance march some of you might be familiar with. People from all over the world. It's basically, I think it revolves around high school seniors, is kind of that age. People from everywhere, Jewish kids mostly probably, come to Poland for a week of touring the different sites. They converge on Auschwitz on Yom HaShoah, I believe, and march from Auschwitz I to Auschwitz II, which is Birkenau. Auschwitz I is was the main original administrative camp, and then they built Auschwitz II, which is known as Birkenau, which is sort of the iconic death camp, the larger camp. So it's about 3 kilometers between the two, and there's a march. After that trip experience, I decided, okay, I have to tell his story. So that summer, he lived in Montreal, which is where I grew up, and he came to visit with us for like summer break kind of thing at the beach. And I interviewed him, and that formed I had 4.5 hours of interview with him that formed a lot of the things, the main kind of ideas, like those little things like, if you wear this will protect you for life. That's a quote, that's kind of a quote what he said his grandfather would say to him, to wear the tzitzit, so I kind of took that little tidbit of that interview and kind of spun it into this whole idea of that he was always looking to his grandfather through that remembrance, obviously that's like poetic license there. He was imagining those things, and there wasn't somebody that came in through the crowd and pointed at him, those were kind of symbolic things. But so I took a lot from those interviews, and then as I was actually getting close to finishing it a couple years ago, I kind of realized that death march part, which is the part where they tried to push all the prisoners away to hide these eyewitnesses, right? Hundreds of thousands of witnesses to their crimes, right? That they were trying to get away with. Obviously now we know about them, but at the time they were trying to hide it, right? So they tried to push everyone in to be killed. And I didn't have a lot of detail about that. I kind of had this weird abstract description of it, and I was like, this is not working. And then I went back to his testimonial videos. If anyone, you could find them. Those are other things that I should make more accessible as I get this project going, maybe just snippets of his interviews. But I went back to his testimonials and got a lot of details. And again, those things like chimneys roaring day and night, I think those were words that he said, and not to the bottom of the pile, to the top of the pile. And we were next, we didn't, those were actually his words in his testimonials, a lot of those little things. The rain, I felt the smell of baking bread, So, and then, yeah, that's mostly where I got his information from. Obviously there's historical stuff and there was another book that I read of a survivor from his town that I get a lot of that information at the beginning when all that chaos was happening. I kind of took from those descriptions. Yeah. Yeah.
How hard was it for your grandfather to tell you the stories?
I don't think it was that hard for him,
Because some Holocaust survivors don't want to speak about it openly.
Yeah. He did a couple of interviews in the 90s. Those were the first, Spielberg, as they were called. Steven Spielberg, his foundation gave a lot of money to have people film testimonials. He's still doing that kind of stuff. So they did this Spielberg recording, and it's interesting because my grandfather, looking at the tapes, it was harder for my grandfather than my grandmother. At times, she was, even though she never talked about it as much. I don't know. Anyway, that was kind of interesting. But there's definitely moments when he's, he was so, had such high standards for himself, right? So being interviewed, being on the spot when you're being asked suddenly, and for hours or lengths of time, and you have to go into these stories. There definitely were moments where, he was overcome, I think specifically when he talks about seeing his mother for the last time, which is that vignette, of him looking through the window, which ended up being the last time, So that was, I think, the hardest, and you can see that on his testimonial if you ever were to look at it. But sitting down with me, we were quite close, as you can imagine. He was my hero. as you can tell. And so anytime that we managed to be together, which was not always, because as I said, he lived in Montreal, you know, I was right at his side. And so this summer in '09, when I did sit down and really get those stories, and again, I have those tapes, you know, which people could hear if I, you know, put them together at some point. But, you know, we sat with a drink and, you know, we talked and I don't think it was that difficult actually, you know, in the moment. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of silly for me to say. I'm sure it was difficult. But we were quite close, so. Yeah, as I said, you know, it wasn't something that just happened like one day. I've always was, you know, as you can tell, you know, I always was interested in not just stories of the war or old stories, I mean, they would come out, but just being at his side and just pearls of that wisdom from, you know, from the old way of thinking, you know? Yes, thank you, Elsa. Thank you,
I'd just like to say
everyone.
thank you so much, Russ. This was really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank